Well, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday morning's thought for today. If you were with us yesterday, you'll know that we're working through the passage we looked at on Sunday morning, Mark chapter 6, verses 1 to 6. And we're looking really at this passage where Jesus has gone back to Nazareth, gone back to his own people, gone back to a place where he grew up, a place where people got to know him as this young man growing up in their midst. And here he is now going back as a rabbi and teaching in the synagogue, we maybe assume by invitation. And as he teaches, he first of all creates a wonderful stir among the people because they marveled at the fact he was able to teach with such authority and the things he said they'd never heard before. And there was a sense as well that they'd seen him do things. We have to assume that they maybe saw him do some of the miracles in the area. But when he comes to Nazareth, there are very few miracles done because we know from reading the passage that their faith, in a sense, put a halt to what Jesus was prepared to do. But this morning we want to look at an issue which bubbles up really towards the end of their questioning. As we read the questions where they question whether, where this wisdom's come from, where he gets the ability to do these mighty works that they talk about. And then they go on to question, hang on, is this is Jesus? We all know who this is. He was a carpenter in the town. His mother was Mary. His brothers and sisters, sure, they're still with us. This is just Jesus. What does he think he's doing? And at the very end of this verse, when we read verse 3, is this the carpenter, the son of Mary, whose brother James and Joseph and Judas and Simon are still here? And are not his sisters here with us? And then it says, the very end of verse 3, and they took offense at him. They took offense at him. Now, this Greek word scandalon, the idea is that they were repelled by him. They fell away because of him. But it can also mean that this became a stumbling block to them. This idea that Jesus had come back and he was somehow being able to show himself to be better than he was when he was last with them. He'd gone from being a carpenter to being a rabbi who wasn't just saying the things that rabbis normally say, but it was an actual fact. He was teaching them wisdom and he was doing things which amazed them all. And they couldn't cope with this. This was Jesus. This was this little lad who used to run around the town. How's he able to do this? Why is he doing this? Who does he think he is? And because of Jesus' amazing power and the wisdom that he had, people fell away. People allowed this to become a stumbling block. In other words, they couldn't move to faith because this whole issue was getting in their way. They couldn't see past this. They weren't prepared to accept who Jesus was because it didn't fit with what they felt Jesus should be doing. And because of Jesus being outside of what they expected, they used that, I suppose, or that became a stumbling block to them and they couldn't move towards faith. And yet people still find that a problem. People still find issues with Jesus. They want Jesus to be one thing, and when Jesus isn't that one thing, that becomes a problem to them. People say, well, I prayed to Jesus about something and he didn't answer me. And because of that, I've fallen away. An unanswered prayer then becomes a stumbling block. Or you read something in God's word and you hear Jesus speaking to you and you realize he's speaking against something in your life which you've become quite comfortable with. Something which you maybe have taken on board and you've built it into your life and you're quite happy with it. But somehow Jesus is speaking against it in your life, saying you need to get rid of that thing because it's not good for you and it's not good for your family or for your friends or whoever. And that becomes a stumbling block to you because Jesus has told you that thing needs to go. And so often we allow things about Jesus to become stumbling blocks and forbidding us and stopping us and preventing us from moving into faith. And yet faith in Jesus Christ is where we surrender everything and we say we don't have the answers. We don't know necessarily why, but we do know that Jesus is someone we can trust. And because of this, we're going to let go of ourselves and we're going to take hold of him and we're going to trust him with everything so that we have that relationship which allows us to grow and develop and become closer to him. So being aware of things that Jesus doesn't want us to do, the problems we have with Jesus, don't let those become stumbling blocks, but rather allow them to be things that you look at in your own life and say, is this actually right? Should I be doing this? Should I be thinking this? Is this the way I should be behaving? Have I got Jesus wrong? Should I reconsider how I see him? Because we remember as well that the whole of the New Testament, so many problems with Jesus were that they thought he was the Messiah, that he had come to get rid of the Romans, that he planned to give the country back to God's chosen people. But instead he'd come as a different sort of Messiah. And that became a stumbling block to people. So I want to encourage you as we come close to Easter to think about who Jesus really was and is, okay? To get rid of all the things that you personally think he is or should be, and not to allow those things to become stumbling blocks when you realize that Jesus is maybe somebody completely different. So there's an encouragement for you today. Perhaps Jesus isn't who you think he is. Perhaps he's far more. Perhaps he's far greater than you could ever have imagined. Don't allow him to become a stumbling block as you trust him on a daily basis. So I want to encourage you today to think about that. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow, and have a good Tuesday. God bless.